In our last session, we read a letter from a man who suspected that his 16-year-old son was using drugs. And he wanted to do something, but he didn't want to upset his son, who became angry whenever his father asked him about his suspicions. I suggested that drug use was an emergency, and that the father regard his taking action as seriously as performing emotional CPR, that he be willing to bruise or even break a few emotional ribs, as it were, if it were necessary in the process of saving his son's life. Now, back to the writer of the letter. A man once called me at home and told me that his 17-year-old son had been drinking alcohol in increasing quantities every day, despite many warnings and confrontations. His behavior was becoming a danger to himself and others. I said he needed to admit his son to an alcohol and drug treatment center. "He won't go," said the father. "Legally," I said, "he's a minor. In this state, you can admit him for treatment whether he wants to go or not." The father said, "Oh, I couldn't do that. He'd be furious at me." So I said to the father, "Then you have made the decision to help your son stay an alcoholic and be miserable. You may even contribute to his death." The father protested that he really did want to do something, but words mean nothing. With his behavior, the father clearly said he was not willing to help his son. 2 months later, this man's son died in a car accident. He'd been driving while intoxicated. Now, imagine how the man felt. This business of alcohol or drug use is no joking matter. It is literally life or death. People who use drugs or alcohol can kill themselves or others in an instant. And when something like that happens, it does no good for people to wish that they had done something earlier. It's simply too late. You need to do something right now, today. So what can you do? Oh, there are many things you can do. These days, you can do drug screens right at home. You can go to the drugstore and buy urine screening kits that you can administer right there in your home. Buy one. Take it home and tell your son that you require that he pee in a cup. If he refuses, then call a local drug rehab facility and find out what legal steps you can take to have your son forcibly taken into their care. He's a minor. He has to be evaluated if you require that evaluation be performed. Then you tell him that he can perform a simple urine test, or he can go in for a formal, multiple-day evaluation and be forced to do it. Which way would he like to do it? The easy way or the hard way? Most kids choose the easy way, but that's up to him. If he chooses the urine test, then you have him pee in the cup while you're standing right there in the doorway. Otherwise, you might get a cup of, you can't imagine what, dog urine or who knows what. At least then you'll know what he's not taking. If the test is negative, but his behavior continues to be unusual, don't be fooled. There are a number of designer drugs and off-the-wall drugs that the drugstore tests don't check for, and you still need to have him thoroughly evaluated at a drug treatment center. While he's at school, completely toss his room. Look everywhere. If you have to tear up floorboards and go through the closet and remove ceiling panels, you do whatever it takes and look for any evidence of drugs or drug paraphernalia. This is a life or death deal. Some parents would say, "Oh, but that shows that we don't trust him." Yeah, I get that. But again, we're talking about saving his life. In our next session, we'll talk about the underlying attitude with which you need to be doing all of this testing and questioning. And that is critical.